Now, speaking of Confederation, yesterday was the throne speech was delivered by King Charles, who I simply hope does not destroy the monarchy before his much more level-headed son and his lovely wife take over the place. But I'm not sure, given how he started off the speech from the throne yesterday, I'm not sure that he's going to do what I'm asking him to do. So he started delivering the throne speech with a land acknowledgement. Let's watch this.
Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons, it is with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today as we witness Canadians coming together in a renewed sense of national pride, unity and hope. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed. This is my 20th visit to Canada, spread over the course of more than half a century, and my first as sovereign. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there straight to my heart. I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians. To the First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, you have welcomed my family and myself to your traditional lands with great warmth and hospitality, for which I am humbly grateful.
Okay. Well, look at Mark Carney on his little court jester chair there, just sitting there cross-legged, tuned into the, but Sheila, I can't stand this. Like, I literally can't stand this. The pomp, the circumstance, the protocols, the seating charts, the ways in which the government would have had to bend over backwards to make this visit possible is just such a kick in the teeth to everyday working Canadians who are struggling to survive in this circumstance. Like, what I get from that is those are the rulers, and anybody not in that room is the slave. And I just hate everything about it. I just hate everything about it. It's so gross and pretentious.
Like, I'm not against the monarchy. I just hope that the king doesn't destroy it with his climate change nonsense and his woke nonsense. The thing about Queen Elizabeth was she was never complain, never explain. That was her thing.
Right. And so neutral all the time, across the board, on everything.
Above it
yes.
all. You were supposed to be the stable thing that united everybody.
Yeah.
And a land acknowledgement, is in itself divisive. Because it points to two different versions of Canada, or two different peoples of Canada, instead of Canadians.
Right. And look at the genocidal colonizer up on the throne there, acknowledging the people that he
the left, for sure.
Acknowledging the people that were enslaved and genocided. Look at this. I mean, the disconnect is unreal. But as with anything, if it starts with a land acknowledgement, most Canadians now, I would say, just disregard whatever happens after. So in their attempt to appease, or in their attempt to be woke or to speak the lines or to set the narrative, they actually set King Charles up to look really extraordinarily weak on these issues, obviously.
He's the crown. Like I just you're the colonizer.
Right.
Do you think that you're going to win the hearts and minds of the people who call you that, quite crazily, by the way,
Right.
by doing a performative self-flagellation land
Yep.
acknowledgement first? You're
That's what it
supposed
is.
to be above this. You're supposed to be the thing that unites all Canadians, and this, by its very definition, is divisive. But
Yes. No, they made Prince Charles participate in a public humiliation ritual right then. And the thing is, I think that Prince Charles is so far removed from regular everyday people that he didn't even realize that's what he was doing. Like, that's how far. Remember, this is a guy that was best friends with Jimmy Savile. Okay, Jimmy Savile, British pedophile. And it has never had to work a day in his entire life, and he was just meant to lay down and take it in that moment. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's highly embarrassing.
And I'm not against the royals embracing Indigenous culture, but this ain't it. Like,
Yeah.
Prince Harry, whom I'm a huge critic of, and him and his crazy wife can just fall off the surface of the earth for all I care. Petulant, spoiled brats. But he performed a haka when he was in New Zealand. I think he was on military training there.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. You can embrace the Indigenous culture of the countries of the Commonwealth, for sure. I'm for that. But this is not Indigenous culture. This is woke culture. And there's a difference.
Well, I saw a video of First Nations drummers performing a drum circle for the king and queen. And I went, oh, okay. Well, here we have the genocidal colonizer, right? And the people that he enslaved performing for his pleasure. And I went, well, which is it? Like, which is it? Do we not like this guy for the things that his monarchy did to the First Nations people of Canada, or are we revering him? Because you can't have it both ways, and yet they really want it both ways. Because
I can't figure it out. Like, I think the king of the Commonwealth should, of course, embrace the Indigenous cultures of the people of the Commonwealth. But if you are following the language of the left, that man is a genocidal colonizer.
A maniac.
Maniac. He's a maniac. He's there to genocide you. So,
which is it?
Which is it?
Pick a lane. Pick a lane.
You guys got to do your thing.
Yeah.
Let's keep going, because the performative nonsense did not stop. And for sure, surely this was Carney's people doing this to the king, I think. He says the Canadian government is determined to protect French culture and language through institutions like the CBC. Was this from his preamble or the official throne speech? So if it's the official throne speech, he's just reading the piece of paper that I guess this is the throne speech. So he's just reading the paper that Carney gave him, which is fine, but in special institutions like the CBC.
Okay.
We wouldn't be Canadian without the CBC. All of this stuff is not it's not Canadian culture without the CBC, I guess.
The French language and the Quebec culture are at the heart of the Canadian identity. They define the country that Canadians and I love so much. Canada is a country that respects and celebrates its official languages and Indigenous languages. The government is determined to protect the institutions that bring these cultures and this identity to the world, such as CBC, Radio-Canada. The French language and the Quebec culture are at the heart of the Canadian.
What I think is funny is I don't dispute, in fact, that the French language is at the heart of Canadian culture for some people. And I don't dispute that Indigenous cultures and language are also part of the Canadian social fabric. Of course they are. But if that is true for them, it is certainly true for us Albertans, that our particular dialect and our culture is also distinct and a part of the social fabric of Canada, except if you mention it to the left and they're like, shut up, hillbilly.
Hillbillies. No, I think it's really interesting that England and France have fought 41 wars against each other over thousands of years. The 100 Years' War, the Anglo-France War. These are two countries that have been at odds for thousands of years. And now it's like, well, but French is so very, very important to Canada. Again, pick a lane. Like, is it important or is it not? And if it is important, then what happened to our English history? What happened to the history of Great Britain literally fighting France for thousands of years? It is like, this is just crazy. And just take everything you said about Alberta and do a +1 for Saskatchewan, because obviously we have our own
I should
culture.
just say Westerners.
Yeah.
I'll just
Yes.
say Westerners.
Yeah.
It goes on.
Excuse me.
It goes on because then it says King Charles, while reopening Parliament, warns that the world is a more uncertain place than any time since the Second World War. Really? That's since 9/11? No?
No.
Korean War? The Cold War? They were going to nuke each other during the Cold War?
Yeah.
Bay of Pigs? None of that? This is more dangerous now? Why? Donald Trump, I guess. Anyways,
Yep.
Let's watch this passive-aggressive nonsense.
Yeah.
The system of open global trade that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for Canadians for decades, is changing. Canada's relationships with partners are also changing.
We must be clear-eyed. The world is more dangerous and uncertain place than at any point since the Second World War. Canada is facing challenges that are unprecedented in our lifetimes.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War.
Oh, the Green Reset.
Confident Canada, which has welcomed new Canadians, including from some of the most tragic global conflict zones.
Gaza?
Okay.
Opportunity by recognizing that all Canadians can give themselves far more than any foreign power on any continent can ever take away. And that by staying true to Canadian values, Canada can build new alliances and a new economy that serves all Canadians.
You know what the worst part is? This stuff was written by Mark Carney's people, and they
Yeah.
used the king.
As a puppet. This is a puppet king that's speaking to us, Canada.
Well, that's the thing. The king or the GG, they read the script that's given to them, and that's fine. But I just feel like this is so, like, it's sure, it's nice to have the king here, but to have used this very important time in our history, to have the king here, to take all kinds of swipes at the Americans, like use his mouth, like he's a ventriloquist dummy, to take all these swipes at the Americans and talk about rewriting our economy and this and that. It's so unpalatable.
And absolve themselves from their own participation in the unprecedented challenges that the country is facing. Right. The reason Canada is facing unprecedented challenges is because of the decisions of the actual government that gave him that little pamphlet to read. Like, how can they not acknowledge their own participation in this and their complicity in this, Sheila. Like, this to me is performative garbage, and it maddens me. Like, I don't think that it's good that Prince Charles is visiting Canada, because you know who's going to pay for that? You and I and everybody watching just paid for this trip for Prince Charles, who is a a green world advocate, flying over on a private Airbus. Yeah, flying over on a 300 seat or a customized Airbus to Canada, while he preaches to the rest of us that we shouldn't use fossil fuels. I don't want him here. And to be completely honest, in the new country, I don't believe that we're going to have to abide by this.
I miss the Queen so much.
Yeah, me too.
So much.
But and you know what else has got me thinking is that Mark Carney's brother is a super high-ranking official at Kensington Palace. This is Prince William and Princess Kate's royal house. So Kensington Palace.
How do you think we got the king to come?
Right? It's because of those connections. So we're never going to be free of this level of crazy influence. Like, what we just saw was a puppet king doing a performative art piece for the Liberal Party of Canada. And that's not their role. And because, like, this sets an ugly precedent for what the king is supposed to do in Canada. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Well,
not one bit. Not one bit.
Here's like that. And then like, it's just, I've put this squarely around the necks of the Liberals, right? Like, because they had this opportunity. Like, it's a big deal for a lot of Canadians to have the king here. I like the royalty. I'm not a fan of the king. My daughter is like, my youngest is quite the monarchist. But they had the opportunity to not humiliate the king with this nonsense, or to be a little less partisan and take all these cheap shots at the Americans and use the mouth of the king to do it. I just think it's so
déclassé. Yes, déclassé. Yes. Yeah, tacky. Yeah. Unbecoming, I do believe that they would call it. But it is tacky, and it is an outrage when you consider how much money that just cost the Canadian taxpayer when nobody is doing well because of Liberal policies. It's an outrage. It's an outrage. It's a gross outrage.
It's an opportunity for Mark Carney to show off and show like what a well-connected dude he is, right?
Without question. That's what you hit that right on the head, Sheila. This wasn't about solidifying Canada's ties to the monarchy. This was a show of force by Team Carney to show how many relationships, high level relationships he has. But again, with those high level relationships, like there are a certain segment of the population who just believe that the British royal family is full of perverts and privileged lunatics, and Mark Carney is one of them. You know, if you're going to lump the royal family in with that crowd, then you're also have to lump Mark Carney in with that crowd. We saw the pictures of him with Ghislaine Maxwell, with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, we saw them. So these are the people that we want to be influenced by. These are the people that we want to take our orders from, Canada. I would say we're better than that. The people of Canada are better than that. They deserve better.
King Charles says Canada will protect its sovereignty. And again, this is King Charles reading the words that Mark Carney wrote for him, stealing the Conservatives' ideas, saying it's going to protect its sovereignty by investing in the country's armed forces and boosting its defense industry by joining the Rearm Europe program. We're rearming Europe?
What?
Wait,
what?
Our soldiers are sharing sleeping bags, and they don't have Kevlar vests and helmets when they get deployed to Latvia, which is adjacent to a war zone. But it's okay, because we're going to make sure that Ukraine has everything that they need.
The government will protect Canada's sovereignty by rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. It will boost Canada's defense industry by joining Rearm Europe to invest in transatlantic security with Canada's European partners. And it will invest to strengthen its presence in the north, as this region, which is an integral part of Canada, faces new threats. The government will protect.
Okay, so we're committing to this military partnership with the European Union. We're not meeting our NATO obligations.
Well, and far be it for me to point out, we aren't Europe. We are not Europe. We are across the ocean from Europe, and for so many old stock Canadians, war and famine and the outcomes of war is the reason we left Europe to begin with. We left Europe, came to Canada, put down roots here, broke the land, made something of ourselves because we were fleeing conflict in Europe. And now we're walking right back into it. I'm not excited, as a mother of 4 sons, Sheila, to know that the Canadian government is rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the rearm Europe facade.
The Europeans can do that, by the way. There's lots of them. They
Yes.
can do it. We're already in trouble with the Americans for not meeting our NATO obligations.
Yes.
NATO wants 5%. We're not doing that. Let's start there before we start engaging in this EU program to rearm the Europeans. We cannot defend the homeland. We just can't.
Yes.
And yeah, there's no possible way that we're going to meet this 5% spending target, which is really going to annoy the Americans. But I think that was the whole point of this throne speech, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And coming up, we have another story about what Trump has said about this. And this all relates back to this. So we are paying far less than our required 2% GDP into NATO, to the North Atlantic Treaty, right? North Atlantic Treaty. That's what it is. Yeah. Treaty Organization to protect Europe and Canada in itself. We haven't been making those commitments for the better part of 2 decades. Yeah. For the better part of 2 decades. And so to say that we are going to partner with European nations on conflicts that have zero to do with us, Canada, zero to do with us, I think is misguided, and another falsehood by Mark Carney, because we didn't hear this in the campaign, did we? That we were gonna sidle up to European nations to build some sort of defense strategy against existential threats.
He did sort of float that idea that, well, what if we just join the EU? Remember, he said we would just join the EU. Like,
yes.
We have the longest undefended border with the Americans.
Yeah.
And we used to really like them, and they used to really like us, and we do all this trading with them. The world's largest trading relationship. Maybe we should fix that before we join the EU, where the Brits are trying to leave it.
See, and
we want out.
Like, I thought that he was talking about an economic partnership, like a financial partnership with the EU, where we would adopt the euro and, participate in economic partnerships. But this, a military partnership with Europe, to say that's that American offer of the 51st state is looking better and better every time they talk.
Did we bring that up? Maybe we can bring that up. The Americans on their Golden Dome.
Yeah.
They made that offer yesterday. Donald Trump did. I don't know if we talked about, was it yesterday? Maybe it was Monday, but I wasn't on the stream yesterday because of technical catastrophes. We've got Andrew Scheer, which was very sad because I had a lot of things saved up inside me to talk to Lise about.
We miss a day, and it is a sad state of affairs.
The videos are flying back and forth between the two of us. Okay, we got Andrew Scheer, who is the leader in the House right now for the Conservatives. He addresses Parliament following King Charles's speech and slams the Carney Liberals for failing to provide a roadmap to prosperity, because there's a lot of stuff about how we're going to spend money to rearm Europe for some reason, which has nothing to do with us. Spend money on the CBC, again, largely nothing to do with anybody because nobody watches it. And the elephant in the room is that nothing mentioned getting us out of this fiscal disaster that we're in. They just used the king to be a mouthpiece, unfortunately,
Yep.
for just division and, I don't know, virtue signaling. But anyways,
Mhm.
Andrew Scheer points out the reality of the throne speech.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as you know, it is the convention here that we aren't terribly critical of His Majesty's speech while he's still in the national capital. There will be lots to say tomorrow about the deficiencies and the lack of details, the lack of actually a plan to implement anything that was in there. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out just a few things. I'll elaborate more tomorrow. Yes. So I expect you all to be here for that. It's not good enough to say what you intend to do. You have to provide some kind of a roadmap to get there. And remember, the Prime Minister has set the bar extremely high. He won't be able to get the benefit of the doubt that Justin Trudeau had when he first started in this place after his background. He has promised Canadians that he will resolve the challenges facing Canadians. And yet in that, you won't like what comes next. You won't like what comes next. And yet in these early days, we already see that he can't get results. So he's learning very quickly how to be a liberal politician. Promise a lot and deliver little. That is the track record of this government. The only parts that were even remotely decent in the throne speech, of course, were plagiarized from conservative policies that we've been fighting for and they've been fighting against for a decade. But we know that the Prime Minister is no stranger to copying work from others and passing them off as his own.
That's so funny.
That's what you call a burn. That's what you call a burn. Yes.
He's right. Like there was nothing in the throne speech. I watched it a couple of times because I was like, why are they doing this to the king? They should have been a little less partisan on this stuff, but instead they went full in, knowing, as Andrew Scheer points out, that the Conservatives are going to go easy, at least yesterday, on the throne speech, because the king was still in the national capital region and the words did come from his mouth, but were not written by him. So they thought, okay, we've got the king. We're going to get him to, a virtue signal and